What's up, everybody? It's your girl Mika, and we're back for another Red Cup Talks because y'all know when we have the Red Cup, we're about to spill some truth. So I wanted to come on today and talk about the Breakfast Club because you know here is where truth, pop culture, and politics meet. So I want to talk about Byron Donalds being on the Breakfast Club. Now, I don't want to talk about it from the perspective of what everybody else is talking about, even though it is funny. However, I want to get into a couple of the topics that they talked about. And one being January 6th, because liberals love to talk about January 6th, but they don't like to update you on actually what they found out and actually what's happening. So let's do it here on the Red Cup. Here we go.
Oh, what's up, Angela?
Sorry, just on this same point, you talked about taking the man in his totality.
Yeah.
So one of those things in his totality is what happened on January 6th, which was your first term in Congress.
Yeah.
Do you think he should be held accountable? Donald Trump should be held accountable for his role in the January 6th insurrection?
Well, I mean, listen, first of all, I would tell you that everybody's responsible for their own actions. Just like I'm not going to blame friends or blame anybody else for the things I've done wrong in my life. I'm not going to put that on him. I'm not going to run around and blame Bernie Sanders for the fact that Steve Scalise was shot. Because if you go back and look at when Steve Scalise, who's the current leader in the House of Representatives, who almost died at a congressional baseball practice. Hold on, I'm going to explain this. So I'm going to come back to January 6th.
Yeah, please do.
No, I will,
Oh, gosh.
The shooter that almost killed Steve Scalise, the Republican leader, he said vehemently that the reason why he went to the congressional baseball practice of Republicans to shoot it up was because he felt that Republicans were going to take away health care. And what he had heard in his rhetoric was that was dangerous and these Republicans had to be stopped. So I'm going to translate that to January 6th. The shooter is the one that perpetrated that crime. I'm not going to put that on Bernie Sanders, who he cited for the rhetoric around why he went to the congressional baseball practice. That's a shooter that almost killed Steve Scalise. Donald Trump authorized 10,000 National Guard troops. I'm on the oversight committee. He authorized 10,000 troops on January 4th.
And DC Mayor Muriel Bowser said no, because she's always using special forces for traffic. She has the SWAT team. DC SWAT team does traffic. Like, who does this? DC, liberals, Muriel Bowser.
Days before January 6th, obviously. So if you're going to say that you incited an insurrection, then how are you also going to authorize 10,000 National Guard troops to be at the Capitol? Are you inciting or are you not? Because the record is, he authorized the troops. Mm-hmm. Nancy Pelosi and Muriel Bowser, the mayor of D.C., did not want the troops at the Capitol. Muriel Bowser signed a letter on January 5th, wanting the National Guard troops to be on traffic duty in D.C. Now, here's the funny thing about January 5th, 2021, is that nobody was in D.C. because D.C.'s rules around COVID-19 had the entire city shut down.
Strict.
The streets were empty during this time.
Yes.
So the National Guard that was authorized by Donald Trump were on traffic duty when there was no traffic, when they could have been at the Capitol.
Right.
That's the history of January 6th. So your question is, well, did he incite a riot? Well, I never seen somebody incite a riot.
What I said,
Angela, I don't want to cut you off. I'm going to make one point. I don't want to cut you off.
No, but I want to make sure that you're addressing the right point, because I actually did not use that language. What I asked you was, should Donald Trump be held accountable for his role in January 6th? And so what I think is important is to compare this to Steve Scalise being shot after someone wanted health care versus the rhetoric, the very dangerous rhetoric that Donald Trump spouted on January 6th, where more than 1,200 people have been charged in nearly all 50 states for their role, and 140 police officers were assaulted. The same police officers that your party has said they want qualified immunity for, and Donald Trump, because we're looking at the totality of the person, has said they should have full immunity, right?
Okay, ma'am. So clearly you don't do your research, or maybe you even do your research and you just choose not to tell your audience. So let's get into what's currently happening with January 6th. Here we go.
January 6th thing is bad, but also the intelligence agencies were involved in provoking people to go into the Capitol building. That's a fact. I think every other person who was involved in January 6th, who was involved in coordinating a break-in into the Capitol and in instigating people breaking, they were all arrested. This guy wasn't.
We need to go into the Capitol. Into the Capitol. What? No!
Okay, so the guy that you see right here that's saying we need to go into the Capitol, he is an FBI agent, literally an FBI agent. And he was not arrested for inciting a riot. Go figure. Now you hear everybody there, no, 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 no. He's saying, no, we need to go into the Capitol, inciting people to go do something, right? And he has on a Trump hat. So he's disguised as everybody else. Now, where have we heard this before? Oh, Malcolm X, MLK. Well, they have FBI agents go ahead and group in with the main group. Yeah, this is what happens. This is what the United States has done before. So I don't know why people, wouldn't look into that, would think it's far-fetched. This is what happens. But here's the proof. They had Congress actually look into it. So here we go.
Agents have been reassigned. I want to turn my attention now to this fella, this character, Mr. Ray Epps. We've all heard of him. We've heard of Mr. Ray.
Capitol.
Into the Capitol.
Into the Capitol. What? We are going to the Capitol, where our problems are. It's that direction. Please spread the word.
All right. No, Dave, but one more thing.
Yeah, so can we go up there? No?
When we go in,
Are we going to get arrested if we go up there?
you don't need to get
Just do
shot.
arrest us.
There he is, breaching the line, going in at the first breach into the Capitol grounds, the restricted area. Mr. Ray, you have arrested hundreds of people related to January 6th. And there have been people arrested for breaching Capitol grounds. Kumi Griffin is an example. Rachel Genko is an example. And then we go to Mr. Brandon Strecka. Brandon was arrested for disorderly and disruptive conduct, which included yelling, I quote, "Go, go, go," as rioters tried to enter the Capitol. These three never went into the Capitol. They never assaulted anyone. So let's be honest with each other. There is very little difference between the actions of Ray Epps and Brandon Strecka that day, but yet Strecka was arrested and Epps wasn't. Epps also testified to the January 6th committee. He was back at his hotel when video evidence showed that he wasn't. He lied. He was on the Capitol grounds just as Brandon Strecka was. Epps even texted his nephew at 2:12 p.m. and said, I quote, "I was in the front with a few others." It was on the video. "I also orchestrated it." Now look into the camera, sir, when you answer my next question.
Here we go.
Are you going to arrest Mr. Epps, yes or no?
I'm not going to engage here in a discussion about individual people who are or are not
Here we
going to
go.
be prosecuted.
Can I get a commitment? You just watched the video. I'm an old law dog. I understand a little bit about probable cause. He did very little. There was very little difference what he did and Mr. Strecka. You can see him. He's encouraging. I almost think he's inciting a riot. He's encouraging people the night prior to go into the Capitol. The day of, go into the Capitol. And he was at the first breach. And he breached the restricted area. Everybody, a lot of people getting arrested for not going into the Capitol, but they're in the restricted area. But yet, Ray Epps, who many people feel fed, right? You arrested a lot of folks for unlawful activity. You just saw the video. And I will tell you, Mr. Ray, if you don't arrest Mr. Epps, there's a reason behind it. I believe you know what it is. And it appears to me you are protecting this guy.
So as you see there, the FBI knows who the major players are, and they actually are FBI operatives. Go figure.
You all are supposed to be the party that protects law enforcement, where over 150 police officers were assaulted that day on January 6th because of Donald Trump's rhetoric.
So
You also support the party that is the party of slavery. You also support the party that hasn't done nothing for you at all, actually, because even the civil rights bill that was for Black people actually ended up being for everybody. Even white women at this point get to use the civil rights bill. Oh, you know why? Because the Democratic Party, just like Kamala says, doesn't do anything just for one person. So no, they're not going to do nothing for Black people, and you're going to keep voting for them. Go figure.
So let me respond to a couple things. Number one, the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. There were actually two bills that were moving through the United States Senate that year. There was the
Mhm.
George Floyd Policing Act that you discussed, and there was the
Yeah.
bill that was written by Senator Tim Scott. The Tim Scott bill is the one that could have got signed into law. It was essentially a mirror image of the George Floyd bill, except for qualified immunity. The difference
Exactly.
between those two bills, and Angela, you just acknowledged it, the only difference between those two bills was qualified immunity. The issue with qualified immunity is very simple. If you remove qualified immunity from policing, you're going to have less officers on the street. Police officers make what? $70, $80, $90,000 a year. They have most law enforcement has about 40 million or more encounters every single year with citizens. If you remove qualified immunity, I'm telling you this right now because I've talked with law enforcement officers all across the country, not the chiefs, the officers. They will not be working these communities. I'm from Brooklyn, New York. I'm from Crown Heights, Brooklyn. I may not have always loved having the police in my neighborhood, and that's just a thing from a kid. I may not have always loved it, but when I needed them, they were there. And a lot of our officers today, they're Black, they're Hispanic, they're white. Who does that really hurt, though, Charlamagne?
Yeah,
Because
but
if you don't have officers if you don't have officers on the streets or officers, in urban areas, who's really left in that lurch?
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out what does qualified immunity have to do with having less police officers? Why would that?
Because the economic incentive of qualified immunity means that your personal assets aren't gone after if something goes wrong. So, you're in business. Do you get involved in a project or a deal that leaves you massively exposed financially? You may, depending on your passion for that project, but then you also sit back and think, now, wait a minute, if something goes wrong, I'm going to be held massively liable.
Which is the reason why people do businesses like LLCs, because they don't want to be, personally liable, right? If the business, if something happens with that, right? You can only go after the business assets. You cannot go after the personal assets. So this is a part of business. And let's be clear also, police officers have to be a therapist, a judge, jury. They have to, sometimes know how to fight. They have to sometimes know when to not use the gun, when to use the gun. Like all of these things have to go through your brain in 3 seconds. Most people cannot do that. Most people can't do that job. Which is the reason why some people, not a lot, but some officers do get into trouble because you have to make split decisions. So having that understanding lets you understand why you need the immunity. Now, if you're not going to help me out in a job that I have to do split decisions, then why would I do this job? It's that clear. Like if you were a news broadcaster and you, gave your opinion and you keep getting sued every time you gave your opinion, just your opinion, you wouldn't do that job because your personal assets and your liability, your livelihood, is liable based on just your opinion. So you wouldn't do that job. And this is the reason why police don't want to do it. I don't know this young lady's name, but now let's get into where she decides to throw her hat in the ring and test, Byron's gangster. Let's see how this goes. Here we go.
Read this quote to make sure this is what you said, because you're saying that they misquoted you or they took things. So you said during Jim Crow, more Black people were not just conservative because Black people always been conservative minded, but more Black people voted conservatively. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's what I said.
Right.
That's
but
correct.
like during that time, the parties were a lot different though, right?
Not totally.
No.
I think that's one of the things.
They were very
I was
asking
asking you a question. I know the
Come
answer
on,
to.
come on,
I just-
I'm
Congress.
asking you a
You
question.
wanna be
I know
here
what you just
and
meant,
be
but I'm
live
asking you a
the
question.
whole
I know the
time.
Oh my God. Like he can't even answer the damn question. Like, what is wrong with y'all? Like Angela's over there. Oh my God. Like y'all say y'all professional, but you're not. Like all that damn talking. Let the man answer the question.
answer
Please
to, and
don't.
I'm trying to answer her question.
I want you to
I'm
answer
trying
your question though, like you know that
Yeah.
I'm a person that can read.
Of course.
Okay, so during that time,
You just read it to me. I know you can read.
yes, thank you.
Yeah.
So during that time, the parties were different. So when you say something like this, and then people take what you say and put it in a context as to where the parties were at that time, and you can explain to the people where the parties were during Jim Crow and what the difference is between now and then, you understand why people headlined it and got upset the way that they did.
Let's talk about the parties historically.
Yes, let's talk about it.
The Republican Party was the party of emancipation. It has always been the party that stood for the freeing of slaves and for civil rights. If you go back to the Civil Rights Acts, and it's not just the 64 Act, there were actually 5 other civil rights acts before 1964.
That the Republicans
massively, overwhelmingly supported by the Republican Party. It was Democrats that were holding up those. When the 64 Act was going and before it went into law, the filibuster in the United States Senate was led by Democrat senators of the United States Senate. All those Democratic senators that filibustered the 1964 Civil Rights Act, they remained Democrat senators. They didn't switch to become Republican senators.
Exactly. So your LBJs, right? Your JFKs, all of them stayed Democrat. So if you go back and look at how JFK actually voted, you'll see that it was very, very racist. Okay. If you go and look at LBJ, racist. So at the end of the day, when you guys say that, you make no sense because you think in 1964 they changed. No, they were in the same party before 64 and after. Like, it makes no sense when you guys keep saying this.
Robert Byrd was a lawyer for the Klan. He was a Democrat senator. He was the dean of the Democratic Senate until the day he died. He didn't change parties. Now I will.
And Joe Biden spoke at his funeral. He was with the Klan. And you guys love him.
I'll acknowledge that Richard Nixon, in response to just political moves of that era, he started going into the South to trying to go find the conservative Democrat votes in the South. You call them Dixiecrats or whatever, to find conservative Democrat voters in the South in order to be able to, frankly, win the presidential election when he was running during that era. He did do that. Where I'm highly critical of the Republican Party, my colleagues will tell you, is that the Republican Party in the 60s really didn't even try to get black votes, didn't try to court black voters, didn't try to talk about black issues, didn't try to engage black people. And so as I come along, my politics are about policy, not about personality. And so that's why I go everywhere. I just don't do Fox News. I think people kind of know that about me. I just don't do Fox News. I go everywhere. Why? Because I'm trying to share my philosophies and my thoughts.
Right now, everybody's voting their feelings. Kamala, they're voting for Kamala. I'm going to vote for her because she's a black woman, even though she's not a black woman. Shout out to Candace. But I'm going to vote for Kamala because she's a black woman. She's a black woman. Well, I'm going to vote for her because she'll be the first woman president. But what are her policies? It took her 60 days to give you some policies. And then they were still asking. By the time she got to the debate, people still didn't know. So what are we really saying? These people are running off of your emotions and feelings versus policies. You may not like Donald Trump. You may not want to have tea with him. You're not inviting him to dinner. Okay, cool. But what does his policy say? And were you better off under Donald Trump? Yes, you were. You just don't like him. So here's another point where they talk about Project 2025. I'm so sick of hearing about Project 2025 also. Project 2025 is just like January 6th. They keep trying to attach it to Donald Trump, but it's a lie. But here we go. Here's Angela Rye.
And so then I think we should just touch briefly on Project 2025, which would erode most of that progress, right? So we've already noted your overwhelming voting record with the Heritage Foundation-based agenda. Project 2025 is a joint proposal of the Heritage Foundation, and 25 of the 30 chapters written in Project 2025 were written by former Trump staffers. At least 140 people who worked for Donald Trump worked on Project 2025. And we know that it is treacherous for the Black community because it seeks to dismantle affirmative action, weaken anti-discrimination laws, reduce the enforcement powers of the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, which, by the way, Clarence Thomas used to work there, reduce Medicaid funding, eliminate programs aimed at addressing health disparities, includes measures to increase policing and incarceration, reduce funding for community-based alternatives, and eliminate initiatives aimed at addressing systemic racism in the justice system. As a Black man, how are you not concerned with the agenda that is proposed by Project 2025?
To be blunt, I'm not concerned about it because nobody in the Trump campaign or Donald Trump himself is even talking about it. To be blunt with you, Angela, none of us have even read it. So here's the problem, right? I get it.
So none of us you're saying that
Oh my
the
God.
30.
She just keeps talking. She's so unprofessional. Byron's doing a way better job than I could because she is so daggone unprofessional. I swear to goodness.
The 25 of the 30 chapters that were written by his former staff and at least 140 people who worked for Donald Trump haven't touched it, or are you now distancing yourself from those people? I'm happy to name names, including Stephen Miller, who I know you're very familiar with, was a very senior official in the Trump administration. And I know that we're clear about the fact that you guys are not naming it anymore because it's kind of become the boogeyman of this campaign, right?
Something that gets on my nerves is when she does this, right? I'm a woman, okay? I know what this is, right? It's like, yeah, I got you. I'm getting under your skin. She annoys the hell out of me. Why don't you just ask the question and let the man answer? But something that she's doing there, right? She's not telling you that Hillary Clinton was endorsed by the Heritage Foundation. So I guess Hillary Clinton is part of Project 2025. She probably is because she's also a part of Project 2030 or Agenda 2030. Now, most of you don't know what Agenda 2030 is. That's because it's not in the media. So when it's not in the media, y'all don't look up nothing. But Agenda 2030, which is already in play, y'all are talking about being gentrified. That's in Agenda 2030, as well as you will own nothing and like it. I mean, it'll eventually come out when it's like too late, 2029 or something. But they keep bringing Project 2025 up. And then when they do it, they never let you answer. But I'm going to let him finish. Here we go.
That's what Donald Trump has done. He disses himself every single time. Every time he's asked about it, he goes, I have nothing to do with it. I don't even know.
But Donald Trump isn't here today, Byron.
I know. Hold on now. Let me.
Do you fuck with it? You like it?
I haven't read it. So this is the thing, Charlemagne. I haven't.
So I just named what it does.
Angela, first of all, with all due respect, I like to read things for myself before.
That's smart.
You know what I'm saying? And that's all due respect to you, but I want to read everything for myself before I make a judgment. I will tell you that, like the Heritage Foundation, there are think tanks all through Washington. You have the Center for American Progress and all these other think tanks. I think the UN has something called Project 2030. That's a UN project that's going on right now. What I do know is that Heritage Foundation or any other policy group is not setting policy for Donald Trump. Donald Trump setting policy for Donald Trump.
And with that, that's how you set these people straight, because for the life of me, they think they can just say whatever they want and it's correct. So all in all, you have the Breakfast Club and the rest of the liberals trying to push stuff on Byron, trying to push stuff on Donald Trump, trying to push stuff on the Republican Party. And I'm not even a Republican. I am independent, okay? But I tend to vote more conservative because of the policies, not because I like any of these people. I go by policies and what's going to benefit my family. That's how I vote. I don't vote with my emotions. I don't vote on scare tactics. I vote on policy. What's on the paper? Is it going to benefit me and my family? That's how I vote. That's how all Americans should vote. Because when you let your emotions drag your vote, that's when you get let down. Anywho, let me know what you thought about the Breakfast Club interview for Byron. And let me know if this was your first time seeing Byron and how you thought he did. And let me know, down in the comments, if you want to, how you plan to vote and how do you vote? Do you vote with your emotions? Do you vote with with your logic, with policy? Or do you just vote blue or red all the way down? Just for whatever reason. Let me know. Like, comment, and subscribe. Click on one of these videos here, somewhere up in here. And I'll see you next time. It's your girl, Mika. Peace.